but I can't. I'm not. Yeah, I got it up.
Mr. Mercer,
Yes,
can you see if he gives me the thumb? Sit there.
your little
You got
thing.
it? Okay.
Does it work? I need to bring mine.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting of the Wilson County Board of Education for April 19th, 2021 to order. Please note that the meeting is being held remotely through the Zoom video conferencing platform, and the following board members are present in the boardroom. Vice Chairman, Mr. Mercer, Mrs. Boyette, Mr. Boykin, Mr. Breen, Mrs. Powell, myself, Dr. Fitch, and currently remote is Mrs. Barnes. The meeting is being televised on Spectrum and Green Light Channel 22 and live streamed through the Wilson County Schools YouTube channel. The public can also view the meeting through links on the Wilson County Schools Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages, and the Wilson County Schools website. Based on the executive order from the governor, which is still in place, face coverings must be worn during the board meeting. Therefore, all participants here in the boardroom are masked and will remain masked throughout the meeting. Members of the board, before we approve the agenda, I would like to add one item. I would like for it to go under action. Item I, Superintendent of the Year nomination. And if there is nothing else, the chair will entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell,
I move we approve the agenda for the Wilson County Board of Education, dated April the 19th, 2021.
Second.
as amended, Mrs. Powell,
Yes, and with the addition of the Superintendent of the Year nomination.
is the seconder of the motion in agreement? It
Yes.
has been moved by Mrs. Powell, seconded by Mr. Mercer, that the agenda for the April 19th, 2021 Board of Education meeting be approved with the amended item to be added under action, item I, Superintendent of the Year nomination. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please record your vote, please. Mrs. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Mr. Mercer?
Aye.
Mrs. Powell?
Aye.
Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
And myself, Dr. Fitch, aye. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Mr. Boykin, I think if you would lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance to be followed by a moment of silence, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the board. Next on the agenda calls for the approval of the minutes. You probably received an email from Mrs. Horrison asking that on pages 8 and 11 of the March 15th, 2021 regular board meeting, because we have two sets of minutes to approve, the March 15th, 2021 and the March 29th, 2021. So the correction is for the March 15th, 2021. If you will make note of that, you should have gotten an email, and that will show those two corrections in red. On page 8 of the minutes, under item F, under policies, in red is the insertion of as recommended. And the other change is on page 11. In the last paragraph that begins with Mr. Breen. On the second line, there's a strike through for in regards to a strike through of the word complaint and the insertion of the word baseball. I would also ask for a clarification on the March 15th minutes, page 6. The paragraph when it starts, Senate Bill 2020 required the following. Is the third bullet, is that contact tracing or contract tracing?
Be contact.
Okay, then we need to correct that and put reporting, plan submission, and contact tracing. Do you have any comments, questions, or discussion in regard to those changes? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion in regard to the approval of the minutes for both March 15th and March 29th, with March 15th being with the stated corrections.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Barnes?
I move that the minutes of March 15th with the address changes and the regular board meeting and the March 29th, 2021 special board meeting be approved with the necessary changes.
Second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Barnes, seconded by Mr. Mercer, that the March 15th, 2021 minutes of the regular board meeting be approved with the changes as stated, and that the March 29th, 2021 special board meeting minutes be approved with any necessary corrections, if any. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please record your vote. Mrs. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Borkins?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Mr. Mercer?
Aye.
Mrs. Powell?
Aye.
Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Myself, Dr. Fitch, aye. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Next is the chairman's report. I really don't have anything that is pressing, but I would like to say that we're happy that everybody is back safe and sound from our spring break as we begin in earnest these last few weeks of the school year and as it winds down. We hope that all the teachers and staff were able to get their vaccinations at the end of last month and are well taken care of and are now back and currently to the 4-day face-to-face class instruction. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mills for his report.
Madam Chair, board members, I'll piggyback a little bit on what Dr. Fitch was saying. Since our last board meeting, we've gone back to offering 4 days of in-person instruction for students back into Plan A, and that was on March 29th. It has been nice to see our schools full of students again and back in the swing of things. We had spring break April 5th through the 9th, and I hope that was a restful and relaxing time for folks. Much needed this year, especially if there was a year to need a break. That was a good one. But it will go very quickly from here on out, and I hope our students keep working hard and finish the year strong. And it's going to be a quick end of the school year from here forward, as we've always seen. And I don't know that that's a bad thing or a good thing, but it'll be nice to have another year in the hopper for us. So we had a virtual job fair for certified staff on March 27th. I want to thank everyone who's involved with planning and coordinating that, especially our technology department, because this was the first virtual one we'd ever had. A lot of moving parts to figure out, and they did a great job, and HR and our folks pulled all that together. I also want to shout out to our principals and the school leaders who were online to meet with interested parties. I popped in about 3 or 4 of them, and I think they had a good time with it and made a day of it. I think we had about 30-something folks come through and rotate through. So that was a first for us, and we found a way around that during the pandemic. We also held an Opportunity Culture Job Fair on April 6th. That was also virtual. And we shared a little bit with you at the February meeting about Opportunity Culture. That's that staffing model that restructures schools to extend the reach of teachers and assistants and principals. So if you remember, we'll be implementing Opportunity Culture in 10 of our schools during this first cohort. During the job fair, the applicants had a chance to ask questions about the positions and their level of interest. So we're now in the process of interviewing candidates, and we'll be sharing more with you about that in the future. I wanted to also thank specifically the Wilson County Health Department and our Carolina Family Health Centers for administering the second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine to our teachers and staff on March 30th. That was our last district-wide vaccine clinic that was held at Fike. The relationship we've had with them has been very, very important, and they've been incredible partners for us. And the vaccine process went very smoothly for us. In total, more than 600 vaccines were administered to staff who chose to be vaccinated. So that was a really big event for us. It's also got a chance today to say thank you and wish farewell to Major Scott Biddle with the Wilson Police Department. He has served our community and our school district for many years. He retired last Friday, the 16th, and I wanted to say on behalf of the school system, we really appreciate how he has gone above and beyond to support our staff and students over the years. He's led our safety impact team, which was created after the Sandy Hook elementary tragedy in 2012. The team consists of leaders from the school system, Wilson Forward, Mercy Management, Law Enforcement, Fire and Rescue, 911 Communications, and the Substance Prevention Coalition. It's a pretty big group. This team serves as a really stellar example of how partnerships can work effectively, and the members continue to meet monthly even after the 8-year period's passed. Throughout this whole time, Major Biddle has been at the helm, and we really do wish him all the best and truly appreciate his expertise and leadership. He will be missed. Make sure if you see him, we give him a substitute teacher form or volunteer form so we can keep him engaged and locked in, but we'll miss Major Biddle and wish him well. We were recently featured on WRAL Channel 5. The segment highlighted our cleaning processes to show our families how dedicated we are to keeping our students and staff safe. It was filmed at Jones Elementary School and showcased the Jones custodians, Principal Liz Jenkins, Director of Maintenance Mark Letchworth, and Assistant Superintendent Dr. Ben Williams. And they did a really amazing job sharing our processes and procedures and how much the safety of our students means to us. It was really well done, and we've gotten lots of good feedback on that. I definitely want to include this because I think these folks are watching, according to Ms. Lynch. So we want to recognize Fike High School ELA teacher Laura Nelson for earning her National Board certification, and Fike High School Exceptional Children's teacher Sheena Boykin for renewing her certification. For those of you that don't know, National Board certification is a big deal. Ms. Boyd is clapping. Dr. Wilson's shaking her head up and down. This is a big deal, and it is a rigorous and tiring and trying process. But it really does stand for the best of the best in what we're doing in our profession and teaching. We're just very proud of them, and we wanted to share that with you. And they did that during really trying times. If you think about doing the work that has to be done, which is very involved in the classroom during a pandemic, is probably should be bonus points for them. So that advanced teaching credential goes beyond state licensure, and we now have 76 educators with the certification. That is a good number to have, and we're very proud of that. We want to thank specifically Sherry Jernigan in our HR department for supporting our educators who are working towards National Board certification, recertification, and her support and encouragement is very invaluable. But congratulations again to Laura and Sheena for that outstanding work. It pays dividends not only for them, but for our students in our schools. So congratulations, that's a big deal. National Assistant Principals Week was held April 5th through the 9th. We want to thank our 25 assistant principals who do an incredible job. They work behind the scenes sometimes to support students and staff and other times up front. But we want to thank them for their dedication and their love of students and their leadership. We've had a chance to meet with them individually and in small groups recently. And this year, again, has been a particularly challenging one. But please, if you get a chance to see them, thank them for all the things they do and give them a pat on the back. Last, I wanted to share that we have been awarded a USDA Distance Learning and Telemedicine Grant, which is really exciting, for the amount of $347,546. That's a nice start. The funds will assist us in implementing distance learning labs through video conferencing in 6 of our elementary schools. And we're excited about that, especially given the circumstances we faced lately. We're also going to purchase mobile distance learning carts to provide access to STEM education for students. And students will be connected to educational opportunities at other schools in the district as well as colleges and universities. Our teachers can utilize the labs for PD, professional development. And the grant funds, this is also a nice little treat. Grant funds will also provide telemedicine equipment and capabilities in several of our elementary schools. So with the addition of this high-tech telemedicine equipment, the number of students and staff that are being evaluated, assessed, and followed up and treated would grow exponentially. So we're very excited about that. Congratulations to Ms. Renee Turner for working through that, and instructional staff and others that had a hand in that. That's a nice addition for us and comes at a really good time. Finally, one more good piece of good news is we're going to hold a ribbon cutting for our new WASH clinic at Hunt High School. We've got down May 5th at 10 a.m. We're working out the details, and I'll touch base back with you again. But kind of mark your calendars now, plan to attend. We're very excited about that starting up. We talked to the health department about the staffing, and Dr. Kim is ready for us to come see everything. Our maintenance staff and Hunt staff are working very hard to get things prepared. And we're excited now that we will have 3 of those clinics in our school system. And folks are coming to see us and what we're doing with that from across the state and asking how we managed to get that done. So we're very excited to add that to our toolbox. So board members, that's all the good news and information from my report tonight.
Well, thank you for...
Excuse me, I have a question, Dr. Fitch of Dr. Mills.
Yes.
And that is, how's the dental bus going? I saw it parked in front of the health department, and I just wondered, how's that going?
Dr. Williams just talked to Miss Ellen about that. Ben, do you want to share where we are with that?
Yes, sir. Get my video. We started it back. We were trying face to face. So, as far as the dates concerned, we had some elementary schools that had already been visited by the dental clinic, and that has started back on its rotation again. There is a staff member that they are bringing on board, so we may be halted for just a little bit, long enough to bring that staff member on board, and then it will resume again. So it is underway, resuming again, and we'll be finishing up before we conclude the school year at all the elementary schools.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we thank you, Dr. Mills, for that report. One of the things that we have missed in having the remote meetings is the good news, and where people are in here with us, and there's certainly a lot of good news. We wish Dr. Biddle enjoyable retirement. We congratulate all of the individuals that you mentioned in terms of the National Teacher Recertification and Certification, and for all of the other good news that you have shared with us. So we thank you so much. I'm also going to give a quick thank you to Dr. Wilson and Ms. Horson, because right after this started, all of a sudden my computer decided it wanted to restart and do whatever it wanted to do. So the two of them got over here and got me going again while Dr. Mills was giving his good news and superintendent's report. The next item on our agenda is where we allow the public to give input. We have had one person who has requested an opportunity to address the board, and it is being addressed in written form. Each person is granted 3 minutes for his or her presentation, and this portion of the meeting is for the board to hear matters of interest from the public. However, obscene or vulgar statements, personal attacks, and statements reasonably perceived to be disruptive or imminently threatening to the orderly operation of the meeting shall not be permitted. Amber Lynch is going to read the letter submitted by Ashley Bone. Amber, are you regarding schedule change? Amber, are you ready? Amber, I think you have frozen.
If not, that's a really hard position for her to hold her head.
I know.
She's gonna need chiropractic help in a little while, won't she? Maybe a TENS machine.
Yeah, we hear you now. Thank you so much. Are you still with us? Can you hear us?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
It's kind of garbled, but
Frozen?
we heard the frozen part.
Yes, she's upstairs.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
We can bring her downstairs.
Okay.
I think they're going to allow, Amber, I think,
I'm writing.
Amber,
Let's not run the timer this time.
we need to have you move either to a different computer or,
You mean mute her?
She sounds like she's auto-tuned.
I sent her help when she took the
I sent her a
video
text
off.
and told her
It
to
would,
take off
it
the
would.
camera.
Why she's having problems with
And
that?
I'm frozen.
you're not frozen now.
On mine, she is.
Well, she came in with Am I Frozen?
Okay.
Her video
Can y'all
is.
hear me now?
Come downstairs.
You play the guitar.
That was good, Velma.
Candace with the comeback. Okay, she's coming downstairs.
All right, you know, this technology does what it wants when it wants.
You made it sound like she was grouting. Come downstairs.
Come downstairs, I know, it
Come
sounds like
downstairs
that.
right now.
Let's hope her neck's better. Yeah, okay. Hey.
Hey!
Hello,
The walk of shame.
Very bad.
right back in there.
How bad was my frozen feet?
It was a good look.
You're gonna need to go to a chiropractor,
Chiropractor.
the way it looked.
You're gonna need several adjustments.
Okay, I'm ready now.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
If you would proceed, thank you so much.
All right. Hello, I'm writing in concern of the schedule change with our kids now going back 4 days a week. The virtual deep cleaning day being left in the middle of the week on a Wednesday is an obstacle for most parents. Could we discuss changing this virtual deep cleaning day to Fridays? I know this will not make it easier on everyone, but for the parents and guardians who are off on Fridays or get off early, it makes finding childcare or being at home with the kids much easier. Many places of employment are closed on Fridays in comparison to Wednesdays. Thank you, Ashley Bank.
Thank you, and I apologize for having mispronounced the writer's last name. So please accept my apology. At this time, you as a board may, one, direct the chairman to respond to the concerns on behalf of the board, direct the administration to respond to the concern, refer the matter to a board committee, refer the matter to the administration, or place the matter of concern on the agenda for a future meeting. What is your pleasure?
Administration.
Administration.
All right, Dr. Mills and staff, we are asking that you respond to the message that was just read.
Okay.
And thank you very much. Next, we're at the discussion, information, action items. We have 8 items there. Even though we have gone through our policy manual, please remember that from time to time, some policy revisions will come before us, and today is no exception. We have 3 policies that are coming before us, considered a first read for today. Policies being drafted by our board attorneys to be in line and complying with general statutes as well as the North Carolina School Boards Association policies. Once we take action on this at the next meeting, these policies will be in place and we will have to replace what currently is on our books. So the first policy is draft policy 7331, publication or creation of materials or other products by employees. Dr. Mills.
Madam Chair, board members, we'll scroll through to the first reading of this policy code. Dr. Wilson's been working with our attorneys to go through this policy, so what questions do you have?
Members of the board, do you have any questions in regard to policy 7331?
I have just one.
All right, Ms. Boyette.
I know there's a site called Teachers Pay Teachers, and they charge, I don't think I've ever seen anything more than $5 on it. It's usually about $1 or $2 where you can get templates or things like that. I would like for teachers to still be able to use lesson plan ideas and things like that for a very minimal, minimal. They're not starting their own organization, but for a minimal cost, they can upload and, like I said, because I've purchased several things from them.
All right, so you'd like to see them do some revision to include an exception for that particular site or others that are like it?
Yes,
Okay.
and for minimal, maybe,
Some monetary value.
yeah,
below a
for
certain
monetary
threshold.
value that is very minimal.
Okay.
Okay.
Members of the board, are you in agreement that we need to go ahead and allow the administration to do some tweaking and revising to allow for that request to be honored?
I agree with it.
All right.
I agree with you. I have one little question on 30. So if I'm a teacher, I'm hired, or I'm part of the staff, and I'm achieving or I'm going toward getting my master's thesis or my doctorate designation, and I'm doing research and data during that time, and then suppose that later on I decide to actually write a book, and I place all the documentation that I have inside of the book and publish it. So proprietary rights, would that be between the school and the person doing that? How does that work? Because I know some people, their dissertations are printed into books. So that just brought a thought.
Okay, a lot of times dissertation material may be presented in articles and books, but there is no remuneration, there is not any payback for the individual who is in that publishing arena. But I'm going to let the board attorney address this.
Typically, this is a case-by-case evaluation. If someone is writing something that is of particular interest and is going to be published, the school district would own the rights to the work done during our time. But typically, whenever someone is in their thesis or master's or doctoral program, there is a agreement between the student and the university, and that sort of takes precedent as well. So I think the idea being that if you're creating work for hire during your work for the Wilson County Schools, we're going to own that unless there is a agreement that supersedes it with that individual, generally speaking.
Okay, all right. So it's important to make sure there's agreement beforehand.
That's right.
Or it's not being done
It has to
during the
be
workday.
approved.
So-
I'm sorry?
Or it's not being done during the workday.
Or it's not being done during the workday. Then it's not work for hire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So shall we move to policy 7410, teacher contracts? Dr. Mills? I think the only thing is when we come to the legal reference that is being added to this particular policy. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Yep, trying to get to it. Yeah. On line 78.
Right. And it's given a cross-reference. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we move to policy 7940, classified personnel. The last one and this one are revised policies. The revision comes at line 1 with strike through, and then in the beginning of 2 and a redefining of classified beginning on line 3 through line 8. Any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, this is policy 4001. Classified personnel is our old policy, and we already had 7940 in the books. And so this is combining the old with the new.
Okay.
And that's why you see on the very first page the strikeout of the title, because the original 7940 had suspension and dismissal.
Okay.
So we're just trying to combine the two together instead of making two separate policies.
Okay. And that's to be in keeping with the recalibration of numbers?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We still have a few old policies that are on our website.
Yes.
And we're trying to get those folded into a policy or bring them to you for permanent removal.
All right. Any question or comments? These will come at our next scheduled meeting in order for a second reading. Thank you. Next is Prom, Awards Day, and Graduation. Dr. Mills.
I'll turn this over to Dr. Wilson. She's been working with this with
Okay,
her staff.
Dr. Wilson.
Yes, ma'am. We had a large number of people who've been working on this. The high school principals, their leadership teams, they've consulted with students at their schools, and Mr. Linden has been spearheading this. And I think he's online to share a little bit of information with it. There's a lot of information here on your document, but he can bring some clarity for any one particular item.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Did want to give you an update on our planning for the prom and the awards day ceremonies and graduation. As Dr. Wilson and Dr. Mills alluded, there's been a lot of conversation with our stakeholders with this. Our principals have met with their staff and with student representatives, and then we've met with them and really tried to talk through some logistical components to this, all the time weighing in with where we are in relation to what we need to do in terms of safety for our students. So in order of things happening, our prom will be the first things that will be taking place. We're planning for those to happen in our school gyms or other large gathering spaces. There was some discussion about having these outside, but after a lot of discussion, we determined that the gyms or the other large gathering spaces would be better. Our gyms are air conditioned and we don't have to have contingency plans for inclement weather. And as you can imagine, when you're preparing for a prom and you've gone through everything that you need for a special event and a thunder shower pops up, that ruins more than just the evening for these students. So we wanted to take as much of that out of play as we could. Initially, we're looking at a time slot of 8:30 to 10 p.m., but that is assuming that we can maintain our 30% maximum capacity within our facilities. If our numbers exceed the maximum capacity of 30%, then we may have to go with multiple times for the prom so that we can stay within those caps. We do have a process in place so that students that are going as couples to the prom will be assigned to the same prom time in that event. Right now, based on our numbers that we have,
Kind of comes in handy.
that's right. Right now, based on our numbers, we do not anticipate that we're going to have to utilize those multiple sessions, but we do have that as a plan if we need to. Our students are registering online so that our schools know exactly who's planning to attend, and our students and staff will adhere to the guidance from the state healthcare and government agencies. Some of those are that we'll have signs posted, telling students that they still need to practice proper guidance. We'll have sanitizing stations. We're not going to have any type of buffet meals. It'll be either commercially prepared food and bottled water, but we're working with the health care agencies to make sure that we're in good shape in being in compliance with all of the procedures and policies there. Any questions about the prom?
Part of the safety procedures are social distancing, but yet at a prom, you've got dancing. So how are you proposing to manage social distancing?
Under Plan A, it does allow for the students to be in these gatherings within the space that's provided in the gyms. They will be wearing their mask throughout the entire throughout the entire time. But when we've spoken to the, gotten guidance from our healthcare providers, we are in good shape in terms of being able to allow for the dancing.
All right. Other questions regarding prom?
I have a question.
Mr. Mercer?
Are all juniors and seniors eligible to go, or just those that have been attending face-to-face classes?
All juniors and seniors that are in good standing of their school are eligible to go, so it does not have to be just face-to-face. Virtual students are allowed to go as well.
Good.
And those juniors and seniors, if they have a guest from other schools and they meet the criteria for admission as we've done in the past, they can attend as well.
Thank you.
All right. Other prom issues? So let's move to Awards Day.
All right. So for our Awards Day ceremonies, it's going to be held for seniors only, which is the Awards Day itself has always been for the seniors only. There have been cases where we have allowed the junior class to sit in during the Awards Day, but we will have this stream so that juniors and other underclassmen can watch it. But in terms of being in the actual area for the awards day, it'll be seniors only. The seniors will be wearing their graduation regalia. Part of this is so that they can use this as an opportunity to practice the entering of a graduation ceremony, knowing how to march in and space themselves and seating. We will have parents and guests eligible to attend, and we will have presenters eligible to attend. The facilities that we'll be using will allow for there to be tickets issued to each student so that they can have, right now we're thinking 2 guests per graduate to attend the awards day. The presenters of scholarships, when they come, they'll go through the screening process and they'll be held in a staging area until it's actually time for them to present. In previous years, we've had those presenters on the stage throughout the entire ceremony. We just think it's in a better situation where we hold them in a staging area and invite them to the stage at the time they present, and then they can excuse themselves from the stage so that we maximize our social distancing. And of course, all of our guests, all parents and presenters will go through a screening process before entering our facility.
Any questions or comments in regard to Awards Day?
I have a question. Will school board members be allowed to attend? Will we be counting the number to attend the award ceremony?
Most definitely.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to graduation at our comprehensive high schools first.
All right, so for our comprehensive high schools, Fight, Hunt, and Beddingfield, graduation date on our calendar is June 12th. So that is the date that we have planned our graduation. We will be holding this outside on the football stadium with a 9 o'clock time. So it's earlier in the day, sort of try to address the heat of the day and possible afternoon thunderstorms as well. All 3 of those schools will have their graduation simultaneously, so that again we can have them when it's in the cooler part of the day. In the event that June 12th comes around and that is an inclement day, that there's bad weather, we are going to have to hold the graduation ceremonies on June 19th as our rain date. If we do that on that date, that's going to need to be a drive-through graduation. And part of the reason for that is the planning for the graduation ceremony involves renting stages and chairs and you know a lot of setup that would replicate and duplicate expenses if we tried to do it again on the 19th, only to be rained out again. So we know that in a drive-through graduation, we can definitely get that in, even if there's showers that day. So that's why the inclement weather date would be a drive-through graduation, very similar to what we had last year. Tickets would be available based on seating. Being outside in our football stadiums, we have an abundance of seating, even at 30% capacity. Dr. Williams and Mr. Letchworth from maintenance have been wonderful about getting us the seating capacities of all of our facilities. So we've got that, and our schools are aware of that. Our students are going to register the names of their guests online so that we have a record of everyone who has attended. In the event that we need to contact anybody, we'll know who was in our facilities on that day. And again, everyone would adhere to the guidance in terms of screening prior to entering the facility.
Any questions or comments?
I do, Thelma. The drive-through graduations, will they be held at individual schools or will it still be simultaneously held?
They will be held simultaneously at each site. The Fight, Hunt, and Beddingfield will all have theirs at the same time, very similar to what we did last year.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I've got one.
Mr. Borkin?
As far as the June 19th, instead of doing a drive-through, is there any way that you could do like a tiered graduation in one of the gyms? so that the students would still have the opportunity to walk the stage.
That is a possibility that there's, and we discussed having a tiered graduation. One of the limitations there is it takes the students out of being able to participate fully in the graduation with their families and their friends, because of the coming and going. Everyone's coming and going at different times. When we initially talked about tiered, and that was for the original graduation date. So that I understand what you're asking, and that we can look into if there's a rain delay or a rain date that's needed, to do it in the gym and do it in separate windows of time.
Correct. I mean, even if it was, one group at 9, one group at 10:30, and one group at 12:30.
We will definitely discuss that and look at the opportunities for that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments? So let's move to graduation early colleges.
So the early colleges, as you know, have smaller graduating classes. Their graduation date is set for May 15th. They're going to hold theirs inside the school facility. Was the original plans. However, WECA has wanted to do something that's going to emulate what the traditional high schools are doing. So Mr. St. Clair has expressed an interest in holding his in the Pike football stadium, which will be fine if the weather's nice. If the weather's not nice, he can move right into the auditorium there at Pike without any incident. Again, per student, tickets will be available for seating. And again, the students will register the names of their guests so that we know who's attending, and we'll do the proper screening prior to anyone entering our facilities.
So in this case, it's not a separate date that is needed, because if they indeed have it in the stadium, instead of being outside, it would then move to the inside facility.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. If the weather is not nice on the 15th, they can simply walk across rather than being in the football stadium, they'll be in the auditorium there at Pike. And Pike, with that auditorium, has plenty of seating for the graduating class of WECA and the guests that will be attending there.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
What time will the WECA have their graduation?
Good question. So WECA's graduation on the 15th is scheduled for 10 a.m. And Watt's graduation on the 15th is scheduled for 12 o'clock. And part of the reason that they're starting theirs a little later than the traditional high schools is, number one, they do not have to contend with the heat of the day quite like the traditional high schools will. And also with smaller classes graduating, they didn't want to end before mid-morning. They wanted their ceremonies to end just before lunch so that when students left there, they would be ready to go and celebrate with their families.
Mr. Linden?
Yes, ma'am.
Thelma, what date is the awards day planned for?
So awards day at Beddingfield is June the 1st. Awards day at Pike is May the 17th. Awards day at Hunt is May the 18th. And at WECA and Watt, it is May 5th. And I will send all this information to Ms. Horson so that she can post it to your calendar so that y'all all have the dates and times of all the events.
I just wanted to thank you for the time that it took to put this into place. I think a lot of parents will appreciate having this in advance.
I think so too.
Thank you, but I can't take much of the credit. Our administrators and our school staff have done a wonderful job of coming together and really brainstorming opportunities to make this as special for our students as we possibly can.
Thank you all then.
Thank you very much. It's always a lot of moving parts, and you all do an awfully good job of managing those moving parts, and so we thank you for your efforts. Next on the agenda is back to Plan A.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell.
I just have a question again about graduation.
All
I
right,
know
let's go back a minute.
all three high schools will be simultaneously. So with the board, would we be able to split up to attend graduation? Do
Yes.
we need to make a plan, I guess, in place of that, so we all
Yes.
don't go to the same
Yeah.
place?
Yes.
Because I would like to attend, but.
Okay.
We were planning on following up with everyone once we got feedback from you as we got through the process.
Well, you all have gotten so used to doing all those three and doing the magic march from one to the other to the other, but if they're all held simultaneously, we'll go back to what was done in previous years, the board being split up and certain persons attending, so that does not become an issue.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you. So we're now back to Plan A. And I think you have recently received that information. If you're here in the boardroom, and I assume Mrs. Barnes, you have it, and it is currently up on the screen. So we're going to turn it over to Dr. Wilson.
Yes, ma'am. So we did not include this in the board packet because we were continuing to collect the data all the way through Friday regarding attendance and bus ridership. So that's some of the information as to why you didn't get that in your board packet. So on this document, you see each of the middle schools and high schools, and then you see two different large columns, one for attendance and one for bus ridership. Underneath the attendance column, you'll see where it says Plan B, daily average, and Plan A, daily average. So this is the information of where, say for example, Darden Middle School, when they were in Plan B, there was an average attendance of 82 students per day in their cohort. Because remember, middle schools were in the 2-day cohort, Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. So that was the average. And now they're in Plan A. There's an average of 167 students per day of the 4 days that they attend school face-to-face. And that same pattern follows all the way through the high school. As for bus ridership, there was conversation, I remember, in our last meeting regarding the bus ridership. And so you see Plan B, the daily average of, and I'll use a high school this time, Beddingfield had an average of 25 students each day of riding the buses, all the buses all together. And they have increased to 59 students on a daily average under Plan A. So that's the information that you have there.
All right?
That's more of just an update to let you know regarding how we're doing with our students returning.
Do we have any more information or clarification in regard to the accountability for our bus routes and the gas mileage and all of that? Are we going to be held to a different efficiency rating given this pandemic situation?
Yeah, I'll let Dr. Williams or Mr. Harvey online maybe might know that information.
They have that.
Mr. Harvey's online. He can talk about efficiency for this year.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Fitz, do you mind repeating your question? I'm not sure if I understood it properly.
You know, we're always held to an efficiency standard, and when we are not efficient, it's costly to us. So are we going to be held to a different efficiency standard? Are we going to be penalized because of our ridership numbers and whether or not these are most efficient or not? Is there any penalty that can come to us because of the COVID situation and the pandemic that we are in?
No, ma'am. Due to the fact that this is a global pandemic and it's affected ridership across the state, no district will be penalized for efficiency this year. As to how that's going to be calculated, that hasn't been disclosed to us as of yet, but we meet every Thursday, and I'm sure that will come up. But from what has been communicated to me thus far, there will be no penalty.
Okay, good. That's good to know that we'll be held harmless because we don't have very much control at this point. All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome.
So next on this document has information about June 2nd. With us being in Plan A, there is the potential for us to return on Wednesdays as well. The board made the decision that we were going to stay with the 4 days a week, and then Wednesdays would be a remote learning day. However, we have on the calendar that June 2nd is a remote learning day. It's also a Wednesday, which could be considered problematic because it's the last day of school. And so how are we going to have a remote learning day on the last day of school when devices will have been picked up, as well as, we did consider having some other Wednesdays as well to be face-to-face as we return at the end of the school year. However, we have to have a plan to get our virtual academy students in. So we're using those Wednesdays to get them in for their end of grade and end of course test. So it will remain a early release day, and it will be a face-to-face day. So June 2nd. And that's what it is on the calendar, but we're just making sure that we've informed the families that it is going to be an early release day, just like it is listed on the calendar. And it will be a face-to-face day rather than a remote learning day.
As well as it being the last day of school.
That's right, it's the last day of school.
Okay.
And on page 2 is information about safety protocols. And Dr. Williams has some information about that.
Thank you, ma'am. There is an update that is in the North Carolina DHHS Strong Schools North Carolina Public Health Toolkit. In the latest update that was sent out once the move to Plan A statewide took place, daily screening for staff and student is no longer required. Just some information in regards to that. There are other districts that have already concluded that they no longer do the daily screenings each day for staff and students. Had conversation with our health director, Ms. Ellen. She is in favor of ending the daily screening for staff and students, and has done so actually at the health department, and that has been ended for some time over there. So we just wanted to share that information with the board, that update was placed in the toolkit in the latest March. It was March 28th, I believe, 24th or 28th was the latest update on the toolkit.
What was the last date, please?
Oh, let me grab it real quick. I'll get that last date of the update for you.
That's worse than if you click on that link. If you click on that link, it'll have the last updated date.
Wow.
It was the 23rd, March 23rd.
March 23rd.
Yes, ma'am.
Was the last day that was required, the screenings were required? So we are now into April, so we've gone well beyond, over and above what DHHS has required. So is this something that you are wanting to be an action item, or that we are still leaving that to the discretion of the administration?
One
We
thing,
could, go ahead, Dr. Mills.
I'm trying to, I won't share the screen, but it's, the live documents got updated March 24th, which is right at what Dr. Williams was saying. Let me switch that screen, hold on. I'll show you. This is an information item, so if the board is interested in doing that, we need to change that. We weren't sure coming into this which way the discussion would go, but in the conversation with other districts and the health department, the screening is not seen as something that is recommended to be required or required to continue. Certainly could be a recommendation, but we feel at this point, for the screening, it would be fine for us to discontinue that, but that's.
Well, I asked the question because in the dashboards that the system shows, when we are seeing students who are testing positive when classrooms are shut down because of the numbers of students, because of the contact tracing and all, is that something that we might want to continue as an abundance of caution? You just sent us information again today as to classes that have been closed and schools that are almost totally closed because of the number of classes that have been closed. So would we be being overcautious in still allowing for screenings to occur, just to make sure that not only our students but our teachers and staff remain safe?
It could be an abundance of caution as to what's the board's threshold for making any changes. That's why Dr. Williams was adding this on there today.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Boyette?
have we actually caught any cases through the screening, for example, the newer ones?
That was my question.
And Dr. Williams can correct me. I think almost all the issues we've had have come from outside and have not been identified at the door, so to speak, through the screening protocols. And I think that's some of the feedback from the health department of other districts. The transmission issues have been happening, for good or for bad. For us, it's better in terms of the incidence issue away from schools. They're not happening at schools. That's one of the reasons why, we feel like the screening protocols and the questions are over and above the threshold right now, and we felt like it might be a good time to make that change. Again, we're getting the recommendation from the health department and others, so no, we haven't seen that either. I think that's part of the rationale is it's just they're not showing up. Certainly you can have students that come up and say, I don't feel well, much like they will with any kind of illness, but we've not seen that through the COVID screenings per se. Dr. Williams, do you concur with that?
Yes, sir, that's correct. The information from Ms. Ellen is that that's not catching potential positive COVID cases coming in. The cases are taking place outside. Most oftentimes what happens is someone's not feeling well after school or on the weekend, and they go through the process of getting tested, and then when you contact trace, you go back 48 hours from the date of symptoms, which usually puts them at school when they felt well, when they were okay. That's why the recommendation for, or at least the advice of moving away from the screening was given by Ms. Ellen, was that it's not effective in actually preventing anyone from coming in who may be asymptomatic, not showing a fever, doesn't really have any signs or symptoms, and typically it's a couple days after whenever symptoms begin, and then we're contact tracing 48 hours prior to that, but when they felt well coming in. So yes, sir, that's accurate.
Thank you. That's what I had read from the state level, and had read something about Ms. Ellen also doing the same thing at the health department when I went to get my shot. And so with that in mind, I would like for the board to consider doing away with the daily screening for staff and students if it's not, since it doesn't apparently catch cases and would save a lot of instructional
It would
time.
save instructional time too, yes.
I agree. I think we should listen to the scientists.
Well, this was listed as under the discussion or information, but I just had those questions, and so since it does not require any action, then it is the administration's ability to just discontinue that process.
I'm thinking that, and I agree with identifying through the process, it's not producing any information that leads us to take any action, or is at school level. But if we're following protocol, and that's what we've asked to be done, and now the protocol doesn't require it, I would think that administratively you could manage that without, because you're working within protocol.
Yeah, I think it's within the confines of what we've been doing so far.
Okay.
I just don't think that any of us would want to make a change like this that's going to affect the public's understanding of what we've been doing step by step each time without y'all having the input and knowing what that is. Ms. Boyd's point is exactly what we were talking with Ms. Ellen about and others, is that, you know, these are changes we've seen taking place at the health department in terms of their protocols and in talking to other school systems. And this isn't one of those things where you just want to model what other school systems are doing. It certainly makes sense, but we're not seeing the impact of the screenings really catching any cases because, like Dr. Williams said, the traceback period is so far removed for us, as well as the transmissions are taking place. Luckily, again, the transmissions have taken place, they're taking place away from school.
Okay.
So, and some of the uptick you've seen this week is probably a relation of spring break and gatherings over that period of time, which that coincides with everything we've seen so far with, you know, get-togethers and holidays and others, which has been a normal course of events.
Okay.
So we'll communicate that change and get that out to the schools and the public.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is the summer learning.
Dr. Fish, Dr. Wilson, her staff can report out for that
All
period.
right.
So we have had, this is another team effort. We have several of us in the instructional services division as well as administrators. We had at least one administrator at each level to provide input in creating this presentation. We are very excited about this opportunity to be able to provide summer learning for our students. We are calling our learning opportunity Summer Scholars Institute. And you will see on the next slide that this is going to be ooh, that was fast.
Oh, that's quick. That's quick.
That was fast.
What's different?
Go
It's still a
back.
PDF of the same thing.
Go back a little bit more. There you go. So one thing that is different that we have not done in a few years in Wilson, and that is offer to all of our students. This Scholars Institute is for our elementary, our middle, and our high school. You will notice that the high school is a little different in that it is for credit recovery. It is for credit. We will, of course, continue to offer meals and transportation for our students. So we'd like to go through a little bit of information about logistics. On the next slide is a screenshot of a calendar to try to get you your thoughts and kind of like see what it looks like on a calendar. So our ideas are to begin our Summer Scholars Institute on June 14th, and it would be in a 3-week session. of the 14th through the 17th, the 21st through the 23rd, the 28th through July 1st. So you will see that in that light blue section at the top, and that's in June, except for that July 1st. I realize that's part of that. And then we would take 1 week to where our teachers and our staff at the school level may need to do some kind of reset button themselves, as well as for us to do 3 weeks and see what we need to do better and before we start our last 3 weeks. And so in Group B would be July 12th and then 3 consecutive weeks. Our students will have the opportunity to attend all 6 of these weeks. It is not an either or. Our students, as part of House Bill 82, is we are either to provide 30 days of instruction or 150 hours. And we in Wilson County Schools decided to go with the 150 hours rather than the 30 days. Because in 30 days, we did not want to just have half days. We wanted to have the maximum time allowed for our students. So in these 24 days that you see here, we have the 150 hours. On the next slide, a little bit more set of logistics. Those are the dates that I shared with you that are on that calendar. The second bullet talks about the July 5th through the 9th, not in session. We're going to have a registration for our students through Scribbles. We will offer paper pencil kind of registration as well, but we will encourage our families. This will be one of those soft rollouts of Scribbles, trying to get our families to get an account through Scribbles, because eventually all of our students will be in this online enrollment process. We are going to provide a priority. That's part of House Bill 82, is that we need to prioritize our students. We would love to have all of our students, but that is contingent upon how many staff we have as well. So we're going to prioritize our students who receive the at-risk letters. They received their first letter around January, that time frame, and they may have some additional issues that are going on and may not have been able to correct those. So those students who are considered at risk will be our first priority, as well as those students who are receiving EC and EL. So the EC is the exceptional children, and the EL is English language learners. The next to the last bullet says sites to be determined. We've had lots of discussion at what sites we're going to use. However, until we know how many students who are going to participate, how many staff are going to be with us, it's very difficult. When we have planned in the past Read to Achieve, we knew that we might have one school or we might have 2 schools. But having this as an option for kindergarten through 12th grade, we're not real sure. We have met with the maintenance department as well as Dr. Williams to make sure that if there are any kind of summer projects with maintenance that might be going on at school, then we would try to move those students away from there. So there are a lot of logistical concerns that we have to make sure that happen in order before we can say 100% this school is going to be and this school is not. And of course, as I said earlier, transportation and meals will be provided. The next slide talks about our instruction. This will be a face-to-face instruction. That will be the delivery format. It will be from 8 o'clock to 3:15. That is for kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. For kindergarten through 8th, the House Bill 82 says that we have to have reading, math, and science, enrichment, and social emotional learning. We have added in the science and the social studies to integrate into the reading and as well as the math. In the 9 through 12, this is for credit recovery for the subjects that you see listed there for our EOC courses. We are also including an elective and social emotional learning. In Wilson County Schools, we are going to work somewhere between 10 to 15 students per teacher. That is our goal, to make sure that the class sizes are not so large that the learning is hampered. The next bullet talks about the students who have the following plans that's listed in the House Bill 82, the exceptional children, the English language learners, the 504s, students with 504 plans, and then the students who are academically and intellectually gifted. The plan, the House Bill 82 also states that we must have a measure of success, and that we are waiting for the state to provide us some direction on specifically what is going to be the pre and the post test. On the next slide provides information about our staff. So you may remember on the previous slide it talked about 8 to 3:15 for our students. So we had a 30-minute time period before the students arrived and 30 minutes after the students leave to help out with the carpool and any kind of other additional duties. We will be offering a stipend for our school-assigned staff. We have certified stipends and we have non-certified or classified stipends. And this would be paid at the end of their time. And this would be paid for those individuals who would be working the entire 6 weeks period, or the 150 hours. And that's why it's going to be paid at the very end. So House Bill 82 already outlines quite a few bonus pay for different teachers. It already does that. I figured you would know that. Yes, you see me nodding my head. I do. Wish it was all grades, but when I saw that $1,200 bonus, if you had gotten one of the high growth things, I thought, hooray, maybe
Yes.
we'll get all of those teachers back.
It's $1,200 for the high growth. What we do not know, and Dr. Mills has worked with his team at other superintendents and in the RESA, about how long does that go back?
Right.
You know, is that 1 year? Well, it certainly is not last year because we didn't take any EOGs and EOCs. Is that 2 years ago? How far back do we go on that? We do not know the answer to that, but once we know that, then we will provide that information.
The only thing they said in our phone conferences, we've had several about that issue, because I think that's really important, is that it had to be previous, but it
That's
said what
all it
previous
says.
was.
That's right.
Then the question was about math versus the third grade reading.
That's
quiz.
right.
And so far, there's no specificity beyond the reading, but I'm hoping they'll go back and revisit that.
That's right. And it also includes national boards.
Yes.
So if you're a national board teacher, then you'll get that $1,200. And then it has for the third grade students, for any third grade, a teacher who's teaching third grade students and they become proficient, then that's another $150. So we are trying to make it, the state has made it very lucrative for staff to participate, but we in Wilson County Schools are doing the very same thing. And the fact that if we have staff, school-assigned staff, who commit to working the 150 hours, at the end, I make that very clear, at the end of that 150 hours, then they will receive a stipend. So right now, what we're thinking is that the teachers and the staff would receive their hourly rate of pay, which is again, very different than what we have paid in the past.
Yes.
Because we've been paying tutors in the past $25 an hour. So we have teachers who are nationally board certified, who have other credentials, and their hourly rate of pay is more than $25 an hour.
And then if they commit certified staff to working that whole 150 hours, then they will get an additional $10 an hour, which will be equal to $1,500 at the end. For our non-certified or classified staff who are assigned to the school, that would be $5 an hour at the end of that 150 hours. We have applicants, the process that we are working on for applicants, the internal applicants will complete an interest form. We are not asking our internal applicants to go through teacher match. They will complete an interest form. We're in the process of fine-tuning that. And the external applicants will need to go through teacher match. We are hoping that there might be some individuals outside of Wilson County Schools who maybe don't have a job and are thinking about joining Wilson County Schools. This would be a good way for them to get their feet wet and see what we're like. But they would have to go through a teacher match. And then the district will recruit our applicants through direct email correspondence. And we will be sending the internal applicants that interest form this week. So that will to our certified as well as our classified staff. I also had read that the retired teacher 6 month is suspended, and it's only a 1 month that a retired
Correct.
teacher can come back.
Absolutely.
So we are expecting a lot of families to have their students participate. And we need staff to make this happen. If we don't have the staff, then that's going to limit our students at who can attend. And that's why we had to have a priority list. So first, we've got to get our staff excited about this and participating in this. Now, I think it's really important that we recognize why we are able to do this. It's not that we have a budget over here with a bunch of money that we've been setting aside for years and years, and that's why we can do this and we've never done it before. This is all a part of another precis that's in your packet about the ESSER funds.
Yep.
So loss of learning is one of the requirements in that ESSER fund. And that's why we're able to do, which is what we were supposed to be doing. I mean, we're not doing anything that we weren't supposed to. So we are encouraging our staff to participate. And the last slide just has the references, just for your information, so that you can see that we, as the team has been working on this, is that we have referred to Senate Bill 387, House Bill 82, and our DPI document, as well as the Public Health Toolkit. So I have the House Bill 82 and Senate Bill 387. I've got them highlighted, I've got them marked up, I've annotated them, trying to make sure.
It's been the Bible.
It has. Everything, and then there are a lot of questions that are marked up over here to where, now what does this mean? This says the word participate. What does that mean? So we are seeking additional answers so that we can continue to plan.
Dr. Wilson,
Yes, ma'am.
what schools will house the Summer Institute? Have you decided yet?
No, ma'am. We don't know for sure because we need to make sure that we don't have them in the locations where we have the maintenance, any kind of summer projects with maintenance.
Okay.
Then the other part is how many students from each school will be participating. And I talked to the elementary principals today, for example. If we have 150 students at one school and 28 at another school, then there's no need to have these 28 at this one school. We need to figure out where they might need to go closest to, and then possibly combine those two schools for staffing purposes. So, because again, in the elective piece, or in the enrichment, we need to provide, and again, that's in House Bill 82, we've got to provide either art, music, or PE. So we can't have students scattered everywhere because we're going to need either art, music, PE, or art, music, and PE. We're going to need to provide social emotional learning. So the farther we have them spaced out, the harder it's going to be in getting enough staff to make sure that we cover our requirements and what we want to offer our students. So once the registration begins for the students, we know how many staff we have. We'll combine those two together and we'll make the decision on what sites to be used.
Will you allow volunteers to come in and assist? Because it sounds like we may have a large number of students during the summer. And maybe
I'm
extra
hoping
help.
we'll have a large number.
Yes.
I'm hoping. We currently don't have any volunteers that are coming in our school. Our first opening of any volunteers will be when we get ready to do our proctoring. And we only have, like, I think 2 schools that we are short on proctors, and we've asked for people to come in to help us with that because we are short on proctors for our EOGs. So we'll just have to see how the guidance goes with having additional people in the building.
Thank you.
Dr. Wilson, just to be clear, because I'm sure somebody's going to be watching this and have this question, there's no cost to the parents.
That is correct. Yes. Thank you. I should have said that. This is free.
And as far as the EC students, will they have certified EC teachers?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that a plan?
Absolutely, yes. Miss McFadder was one of the team members on this planning for this. We also have students who are served in our adaptive curriculum. They will be participating in our Summer Scholars Institute. We will have exceptional children who are served through the resource, which means that we will have their teachers participating
That's
to get their
wonderful.
service.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Members of the board, I need to apologize. I've been fighting a 24-hour bug today. I have to leave. Mr. Mercer will complete the rest of the meeting. Thank you so much.
Feel better, Dr. Fitch.
Thank you.
Feel better. Feel better.
Thank you.
Take care.
Dr. Wilson?
Yes, sir.
Is that complete?
Yes, sir. And that's just for information purposes.
Yes. Any other questions or discussion regarding our summer learning? Okay, let's go to contracts for board notification. Dr. Mills?
Yep, let me share the screen. Board members, we have a handful of contracts that are for notification below threshold. Ms. Talton's on the call as well. First one is Hershey Creamery for renewal agreement for ice cream, which, you know, who doesn't like ice cream? Contract amount is $87,060. SFS Pack Chemical Corporation, renewal agreement for sanitation and warewashing chemical products, $47,885.80. Those two are coming from the child nutrition area. Aviana Healthcare, private duty nursing services for exceptional children, Cost is $45 to $50 per hour. Last year, that cost was $43,464. That was paid from risk pool funds. Those are additional funds you can apply for depending on your population and the issues you're dealing with, and we try and take advantage of those when it's appropriate. And then the last contract that is for notification is for Envirocon, and that is for HVAC controls upgrade at Barnes Elementary, and that is for $52,426. That's for information, and I believe, Mr. McPherson, all those have been reviewed except maybe Envirocon needs to be reviewed?
That's correct, Dr. Mills.
Okay.
But that's subject to the review.
Yes, pending legal review on that one.
Anyone have any questions or comments regarding the information on contracts of notification?
One question.
Yes, ma'am.
Like last year, for example, the Hershey ice cream. When we had a contract with them last year, obviously we couldn't send home ice cream. What happened? Was that considered an excusable out of the contract, or?
Ms. Talton, do you know that one, Mary Catherine?
I do. We, the contract still stood. We have used those in that service or those products intermittently as students have come and gone in and out of the buildings. We are currently using Hershey ice cream now that the students are back in the building for supplemental sales. So that is a broad figure with anticipation for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
And I would have a question. Were we able to come out without losing any dollars on that contract?
Yes, sir. We only pay for the products that we purchase.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I think we'd have a lot of volunteers to finish off that ice cream though if we had that money left.
That was going to be the next thing, that you need some help to use that.
Sign up for that. All right.
Okay, our next item is the update of Wilson County Schools capital projects priority list.
All right, board members, I have 2 documents. Let me share those. I'll share this one. Let me get my other one ready as well. All right. If you notice, and what we shared when we sent the packet is there's the information on the facilities plan is the information we've seen for a while, and Dr. Williams and Mr. Letchworth and Mr. Woodard are on the call with us. So we've got some areas within our facilities plan that we would consider to be priorities within the school. Those in red, we try to just kind of keep them highlighted, so if there was a case where if we had additional funding, what things we would look at doing. But we also went back, and what we need to do is have conversation and input from the board about areas that you want to focus on. And I think we can do that through this process, and I would even suggest at some point in the very near future that we go ahead and schedule some additional meetings to just talk through our capital needs and where we are on a separate setting, so we can set these priorities up. They're very broad in some areas, and certainly lots of needs, but starting on them is what we need to be focused on and have those conversations. So one of the things we did was I sent some information to you that we just received on Friday. We had a conversation a while back with the county manager about if we could get some numbers together and some projects together and get the board's input, then would it be possible for us to talk to them about some additional funding? And we had asked the architects to go through because they needed realistic numbers and timelines and such. So we've been working on that, and so that just came in on Friday after the board packets went out, and we weren't even aware they were going to get them then. We knew we were getting closer. So I've attached that to this, and you've got printed copies at your spot. But let me pull that document up real quick, because it may be a good conversation starting point for us.
While you're pulling it up, Dr. Williams, what is the envelope, building envelope improvement?
Mr. Letchworth, will you do that one while I?
Yes, ma'am. That would be the outside envelope, the roofing system, outer walls, windows.
Okay, thank you.
So what we did was we had some conversation to try and look at some various projects off our list and start talking through those with the architects, so we could take those to the county manager once the board had input and decided some things. So, we've got our list with the cost estimates, but we had 4 schools that we just started looking at with projects that would entail upgrades and improvements that were already on our list. But this just came on Friday, and so I sent it to you, but I don't know how much we've actually had a chance to go through it. But there are 4 elementary schools that we were looking at beginning with as part of the conversation: Barnes, Frederick Douglass, Lee Woodard, and Wells. And so on each of these, they also include timeframes and cost estimates, but also projects that are already on our priority list that we share with you from the past Excel spreadsheet we keep up with. And so it deals with some of the security things that several of you talked about, as well as upgrades to the facilities themselves. And I can walk through those and quickly point those out. But I think the secondary piece of this is, before we start having this conversation, is I need to share with you where we are with the Watt project. Because another meeting that took place on Friday was an update on the Watt project, and with our architects and our construction management firm, Barnhill, Skinner, Farlow, and Kerwin, who prepared this document, are also our architects. But we met on Friday. Dr. Williams, Mr. Letchworth, Mr. Woodard, and myself were in there with those folks, and Ms. Steinagel, county manager, also came to attend. And we're at the 60% construction documents now for the Watt project, and it was a really good time for us to sit and catch up and look through the budget estimates. So another reason why I think today is a good day to have this first conversation, look at this, is, again, this came in on Friday. We had that meeting on Friday, so we were waiting on a lot of information. But what we're seeing with the Watt project is an effect from changes across the nation, which is we're seeing cost increases growing exponentially, especially in the area of steel and building materials. And so we're at a point now where we're trying to narrow down the project's design and scope of the construction, and just the steel cost alone right now would increase by $700,000 for that project. If you remember, the county's been very gracious to us and gave additional monies for the additional space and construction of the gymnasium, but also other aspects of the building in the interior and the components that we needed. So that was a blessing. But in line of that, looking at even with our built-ins for cost overruns and things that you can't control, things you run into, the cost of the materials and the steel costs are going to be a concern for our project. The other piece of that I wanted to share with you as we're talking about capital is that the time frame for things is something we're going to be meeting back again on, and I'll be able to give you an update. But we're looking at the summer to really start But even if we were to order the steel right now, it's likely that we would not receive the trusses that we need for the construction until March because of delays. If you think about it, everybody is building right now, and there's monies going out. And I was told that one company had bought up half the steel in the nation to prepare for their distribution centers. So their demand for it is such that it's just not there, which will affect our project. And so we're going back, this was as of Friday, getting that feedback. We're going back to look at timeframes and building materials and such that we'll need for that project. But I share all that with you, not only just give you an update, but as we start looking at these projects or others you want to look at, I would want us to keep in mind that the WAC project is also going to have some additional costs, and we'll need maybe need some additional funding. And to be sensitive to that, as we ask the county for funding for capital projects, because that project is already underway, and they've been gracious and again extended some additional funds. Ms. Steinagel and I have talked just in the last little bit, and she's aware and knows, and we'll share that with the commissioners, but also to be reflective of the fact that there's going to be some changes probably in Watt's cost, most likely, which we'll need to be sensitive to as we look at our requests for additional capital funding for these other projects. So I just put all that out there in terms of a total picture. The timing is good for us to have the total picture. The total picture right now is costs are going up for many things. Does that make sense? Okay. So what we have in the document with the more specific information for the board to consider is the improvements for that we can look at for 4 elementary schools. And we can do that, or we can look at the spreadsheet, however you want to do it. But again, this information just came in and is very specific and timely, and it includes some of the things you talked about. So for instance, Barnes Elementary School would be ADA work and sanitary improvements, safety improvements. The building envelope is Ms. Barnes asked, interior learning environments and energy efficient improvements. So we've got those broken down for each one as you go through. Restrooms would be part of that. Safety improvements, the vestibule that several of you asked about, because if you think about there's, I can't remember, 13 schools, Mark, that need vestibules. I can't remember the magic number.
That is correct.
Okay. So that was included as well. Window replacement, enclosing that walkway around the back where the library is and the kindergarten wing. Media center. Keep in mind there will also be information we'll be sharing with you when we get to the ESSERS section. If it's not on this draft, it will be on the next draft, that there are HVAC upgrades and contingencies that we can use those funds for, and we have plans to do that. This will be a really good thing for us to be able to do that at this time from a system standpoint and improvement standpoint. But we've got that as well. But these are some pieces and parts that are already on our plan. And again, we're following back up, and we just did get these to share with the board. So I just want to give them your hands as soon as we could. For Frederick Douglass, for instance, ADA, sanitary improvements, safety, building envelope, interior learning. So that would be things such as, again, restrooms. And I'm scrolling through these quickly, I know, but I just want to give you a chance to see. Door replacements, again, the vestibule issue for safety, walkways, and then we've got some things for the gym area, and also replacing the floor in the gym, windows in the auditorium. If you think about driving up that face of that building, there's those windows down that side right there. Cafeteria windows. Cafeteria, auditorium, all those are parts of that component. Lighting, If you, if we continue on just going through quickly, the Lee Woodard, again, same process, same areas. Those would be things such as, again, the restrooms need to be replaced, cafeteria, ramp, vestibule, again, doors, windows, corridors, issues. Some things in the gym, some classroom improvements as well. And then, again, quickly, and we can go back through these and do whatever you would like. For wells, same process, but I want to point out we've got in there the roof at wells as an add alternate, because that roof does need to be addressed. And so there's some big ticket items on that. Again, the restrooms areas are ones that we've been focusing on. Doors, windows, soffits, gutters, downspouts, certainly always seen wells knows that's something to do. Lighting. Trying to think what else we got. That might be it. So those are cost estimates and details that I think the county manager and county commissioners would like to see on help them plan. And then talking to Ms. Steinagel, I think, when we're talking about the Watt project with the cost issues we're seeing there and what the board's desire to work with the county commissioners to address our capital needs, I think there's pieces and parts through this type of project that we could talk about and present with very finite and detailed numbers that would allow us to begin summer next year if we were to get the funding. But also to plug and play some of these things for several schools to address at once so that we would be able to stay within the confines of what the budget concerns they have, as well as what we're seeing from our existing project, with the Watt project being critical as well. So we've got some flexibility with that, and I think it'll be a good conversation piece. But first, I know that the board wants to look at this and talk about that. So. But this just came in, I thought it was important for you to be a part of the conversation today, because it really, I think it gets at some of the things you want to talk about and specificity that you'll need to take back. So, what questions do you?
Questions?
Dr. Mills,
Yes, ma'am.
this is Velma. Sometimes I can be on the right street but going the wrong way.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm just, leaving this in the hands personally to our architects, to Mr. Letchworth, because I like the way you broke these 4 schools down, because I had some questions about lead paint remediation.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were scrolling down, I thought, oh, there it is. So it's good to have this broken down so we can I can get a better idea of some of the things that we'll be tasked to do in the schools.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. I think as we address some of the building needs, we can address those needs that are on our plan as well, so that we're not just patching, but we're actually doing some improvements as we address them. But I think the question is as you have a chance to look at this, then which ones would you prioritize within some of these? These are meeting what you want, and then letting us have that conversation with the county manager and the county commissioners. This is very detailed scope and sequence documents right here you can work from that are capable of plug and play and going very quickly to the planning stages.
Dr. Miller?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I really like the idea of presenting this to the county commissioners. I had gone through and earmarked several projects at several different schools, but the detail in this, it's great. Okay. So I'd really like to present this to the county commissioners and let them, pick some, all, or none of the projects, and if they have room in their budget for it, I'd love to see some of it happen.
Okay.
Dr. Mills, I had a question as well, Velma.
Yes, ma'am.
You talked a lot about window replacements. Is that because of fire department regulations? Because I know in some of the older schools, the windows don't open. Is that why we're replacing a lot of the windows, or just because of age?
Yeah, actually, it's probably more due to age and energy efficiency. If you think about one of the greatest sources of heat loss and heat entry is the windows. And for instance, if you look at Frederick Douglass across the whole front of that school, the left-hand side with the auditorium, the cafeteria and all, that's a lot of glass there that's been there for a while. That's a lot of conditioned space on the inside of that. It's not just for looks, it's actually for efficiency. And I am not the expert. Mr. Letchworth and others can talk at length about that, but a lot of these improvements would be cost savings over time that could be recouped. There'll be a good investment on these buildings.
I agree.
It's not just about prettying them up, it's about addressing needs that are there that everyone can see and identify, but from an impact level that it's going to impact a lot of different things, not only the visuals, but certainly the HVAC issues as we're addressing those as we go ahead. But I really think these are, if the board's interested in these projects, and again, that was a conversation we had and been working through this, then these are ones that the commissioners could look at with very detail oriented and say whether they would have additional funding and the board can make a decision or however they might want to do it. But I think this is getting at the scope of what you need to talk about, and it addresses the items in our plan or our priority list, if you will, which right now we have plenty of priorities, but this would start your process forward and be very easy to understand for anyone to see why this is important. I mean, I think you're just glancing at it, and again, you've just seen this because we just got it, but LED lighting, the painting, the restrooms, the safety issues, it touches on the windows, doors, a lot of the things that you've been talking about as we've gone through it. We just had to wait to get the information. Now we've got it, it's a good time to have those conversations. And even within these line items, there's things we could prioritize to talk about once we kind of know what the support is from y'all in the county in terms of the funding.
And Dr. Mills?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a point to what you said, we mentioned, I'm glad you did about the windows at Frederick Douglass.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I've had complaints, told me about how one room is cold and the other room is hot.
Yeah.
You know, the heating and the air is still not consistent. So as we know, I know in my house, it's that way too. You know, some rooms are warmer than other rooms, depending on windows and depending on doors, and how sometimes buildings, as they get older, they'll settle and have cracks and crevices. So I'm glad you're looking at this and doing this and finding those needs. Those are important. The kids don't have to sit in there with coats and hats on.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, so.
Mr. Letchworth and Mr. Woodard and Dr. Williams have been working and visited with the architects too. They've been on site, been in the buildings and looked at specifics and taking the time to do that. And I think that's what we'll need to do on each one of these areas as we go ahead, because you need to kind of see exactly what it entails, detail-wise and cost-wise, so it makes it much easier to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Dr. Mills, I might just point one more thing out.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is 4 schools right here, and we're looking at, what was it, close to $7 million?
A little over $7 million.
A little over $7 million
Well over $7 million.
altogether. Yeah, with the way that costs are going in today's world, this is getting 4 schools, in really good shape versus, it would be 2 to 3 times that just to build a single school. So, it's actually a really good investment going back in our schools compared to just looking at building a single school. So, you get 4 schools worth instead of just getting 1. And that's evident with the Watt project.
Yes. I think
that's a good point. Ms. Barnes mentioned the windows opening, and just briefly, in my experience with fire training and so forth, to meet the fire codes, the window, and with the schools, schools have to be functional, have to open to meet fire codes, because each room's supposed to have a second exit. And ground level, the windows are considered the second exit. And but in addition to that, if in pursuing this, I think you said we'll still be able to meet our other needs and, as far as maintaining the buildings and keeping them going, so to speak.
I think,
And,
yeah, this would help us. If you think about where we are, the county's been very consistent in the additional monies for capital each year, the $1 million, which we'll plan for that right after the budget cycle and the start of the school year for kind of smaller one-off projects that we're doing. But this will allow us to catch back up and do some things there. And again, my point in sharing everything at this point is, again, you've got the Watt project that's very, very well underway. It's going very well, but we know there's going to be some costs there because of the change in the just the supply and demand and the materials. So having this conversation now with this type of information that we could plug and play would allow us to see what the county is able to do, and then plan from that. And again, we could continue this process as it gets a little bit closer each time with other schools to address the needs. So it would be, again, we're cutting into our plan, and we can have conversation with our public and with commissioners about what they would be able to fund, and again, the planning aspect wouldn't be kind of once in a while and kind of hard to predict. So I think that would help people understand where we're headed to.
and like I said, as time passes, as we make progress, we can focus on other schools with the same type of information. And I agree with Mr. Boykin. This is good information. I also agree with the notion it's a heck of a lot cheaper than building schools, because according at this rate, with what we spent some time back building Jones, and now if we build Jones now, it'd probably be 50% higher.
With the cost,
We could do probably 12 or 14 schools at this rate, and that's a long ways towards making our rounds with schools as those that we need to.
yeah, these would be very impactful, but very much needed improvements to our schools. And again, in our conversation with the county manager, Ms. Steinegger was, very supportive of having those conversations and looking at things we could do to address needs, but at the same time, spending our money wisely to address those aspects of the building. For instance, the lead remediation, as we're doing things to upgrade, would address that, but at the same time upgrade the facilities, which makes sense. And I was very, very, very excited to have those conversations as we move forward. But again, this will be an ongoing process, I think, but this would start the conversation.
I agree with you on how generous the county commissioners have been and so helpful. But I feel like it's time we kind of pull our wagons in a circle and all get on board to meet the challenges we're going to have, because it's not going to get cheaper. So not only the more headway we can make, the sooner we do these things, the more economical they'll be, if that's such a thing as economics and the way things are growing expense-wise. But are there any other questions or comments regarding this? Now, the direction you need.
What I would suggest is that, if the board's okay with this, then this is a conversation I can have with the county manager to say, here are some projects that the board supports, and to look at funding and bring that back to the board in terms of time frame or what aspects of funding there would be. Because these are very detailed and are plug and play to go and would address things that are already in your plans, or priorities rather. Because everything is a priority, but if everything's a priority, it's really hard to start. But this would focus on some of what you talked about with some of the elementary schools where we've seen the population needs and such. But I'll be glad to have that conversation. I've already talked to Ms. Steinegger to go back and show this information and go from there.
Well, I was just thinking, and I'd certainly like the other board members to express their view. I'd like for them to have the very same information we have, and if they have feedback, I'd like to have that shared with us too. And, because, that's gonna provide some understanding, and hopefully it'll provide progress on these projects.
Based on the conversations we had and direction, I think this would give them very specific information to work from that's from the architects and allows us all to know about them. I definitely have already planned to send it to Ms. Deinagel once we, and again, we just got it Friday sometime from the architect, so that's part of the process for this week.
But if you have the opportunity to share this information with their board directly, and not suggesting, but that way they're hearing it from the same person we heard it from, and hopefully the same information.
We certainly have our budget meeting coming up, and that could be part of the pieces that the board would like.
Our presentation's the 4th of May, isn't it?
I think that's it. We looked at it the other day, didn't we?
I think that's correct.
Yeah. But again.
Any comments or questions?
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we're not saying that. I want people to think that we're saying one school is better than the other, and we have more needs at one school than the other. But we have to start somewhere. We have to prioritize, I guess, to decide where to start. Because all our schools, we have improvements and needs in all of our schools, and we don't want them to think that we're leaving them out by no means by starting with these.
That's the reason I asked about the repairs and the attention the schools need to function well at that. And I think it's kind of like the mentality of standing in line. You know, everybody can't go at once.
Right.
As long as everybody's respected and attended to, I think they'll be fine with it, in my opinion.
We were sensitive to that when we're talking about the schools and looking, because if you think about where these schools are located, they're kind of representative of all areas of our county and city, if you think about that as we go as best you can. But you do have to start somewhere. But I do agree, Ms. Powell.
Yeah, because I don't want parents thinking that we're overlooking their schools.
Yes, ma'am.
That we are just starting at certain places. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
And another advantage from doing it this way is we get the whole project or a whole school done in a visually, and in other words, you can look at that building and tell that that building has been brought up to standard, and it's not doing a roof here and a HVAC thing here, because although those are priorities as things break down, we hope to have our $1 million fund that we could do those, or painting something, that breaks, that has to be replaced. These would be additional funds that would fix a school back up so that it would look like it was a true improvement and would be a true improvement.
I agree with you. It's kind of like the whole group dressing up, but nobody dressing entirely a tab here and there.
Yes.
Then nobody's really dressed up. But if you go ahead and take all the measures in our return, then it happens.
We've got 2 million square feet of building to keep up with, so this is a good start. It does address real needs. This is not about, again, beautifying things, but it will make our schools, visibly noticeable that something's been done and it's been done well.
Since this is not an action item, does everybody feel good about pursuing the way we've discussed?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer,
Then,
I just wanted to say one other thing. I think that it might be good in presenting this, if you let the county commissioners know how many kids in our county this is going to affect.
Sure will.
Students and staff. Because sometimes it's easy to get lost in the numbers and just look at it as a project and not look at it like, this is affecting 2,400 students in our district.
Yes. I always try and tie things back to students.
Down the same line, it's also not, the projects aren't cornered in one section of the county. They're spread where they touch a large part of the population.
We did take into consideration when we were looking at schools to do too.
Okay.
Yep.
If we have no further comments,
I will follow up and let the board know. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go to our action items. Which is the first action item, proposed 2021-22 early college calendar. Dr. Mills.
All right, let me get my sharing going on here. Okay. Dr. Wilson and her staff have worked through this. Let me pull up the calendar.
You have received in a previous board meeting the traditional calendar, and so we're bringing to you today the early college calendar. Ms. Cox, as well as Mr. St. Clair, have worked with the community college and their calendar to make sure, to see how we can align what they have at the community college with as much as what our requirements are in the school system. So you have two documents. The first is what we call our working document. That's what you have on the screen first. And that keeps up with how many student days, optional work days, mandatory holidays, annual leave, and then the total number of days. It's important to note on this document, you will see that in the first semester, there are 91 at the very bottom of the screen.
All right, hold on.
Okay.
This thing jumps. Bro.
I know it does. At the bottom of the screen, it'll say first semester for student days at the early college would be 91, and the second semester is 84. And so on the right-hand side, you will see the total where it says 175 days, 9 optional work days, 10 mandatory work days, because that is by calendar law, 11 holidays, again, that we must follow, and then 10 annual leave days, with a total of 215 days. We've also shared this with our finance department to review as well.
Getting fancy. Impressed?
Oh, that was impressive.
I do what I can. Can't control the pages, but I can do all of it.
There are, so for the general public who might be listening, there are a lot of early release days in August at the beginning of the school year, and that's because our college has started, but not the high school classes. And so you have, that is why there are so many early release days there. Meaning that the students that were in an early college course would have to be on campus for that course. Yes. But then they would get out after that because the high school course.
That's right.
That's right. That's very unique in an early college class, calendar. Any questions? You got any questions?
Any questions, comments? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we accept the proposed 2021-2022 early college calendar as presented by the administration.
Second.
Was it? It was you, Ms. Boyette. It's hard to tell everybody. It's been moved and properly moved by Ms. Barnes and properly seconded by Ms. Boyette, that the 2021-2022 early colleges calendar as presented by administration be approved. Any comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none, if you would respond when called. Ms. Boyette.
Aye.
Mr. Boykin.
Aye.
Mr. Breen.
Aye.
Ms. Powell.
Aye.
Ms. Barnes.
Aye.
And myself, aye. So it carries unanimously. 6-0. The next action item is contracts requiring board approval. Dr. Mills.
Board members, we've got 2 contracts. I do need to inform the board we need to remove, per today, conversation with Court 1 for the tennis court renovations at Hunt High School. They have contacted us and have pulled their bid, need to pull their bid to revisit it because of the steel costs for the fencing and other aspects of it. So that was as of late today, just this afternoon. Is that correct, Mr. Letchworth?
That is correct.
So we will bring that one back to the board next month, but we had that one ready, and that was a late notice from them. The other 2 contracts are, one is for Encore. That's for 386-inch interactive television panels for the K-12 classroom, phase 1. With Mr. Mayo is on the call as well. That amount is in $1,278,693.88. And then the other contract is for EnviroCon. If you remember, that was on the earlier, under the threshold. That is for HVAC controls upgrade at Fike High School. That amount exceeds the threshold, so it's $224,543. So EnviroCon is being reviewed by our attorneys at this point, and we have used them in the past. And then Encore, I think, has been reviewed, Mr. McPherson?
That is correct, Dr. Mills.
Okay.
So did you say they're under review now?
Encore has been reviewed, and EnviroCon is being reviewed right now, but we have used them in the past for the controllers.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move we approve the Encore and EnviroCon Incorporated contracts.
Second.
Who seconded?
I did.
Ms. Powell.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm doing the best I can. It's been moved by Mr. Breen and properly seconded by Ms. Powell that the contracts for Encore and EnviroCon Incorporated, and I suppose that's pending the completion of the review,
That's correct.
be approved as presented. Any further discussion or comment? Okay, please respond. Ms. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Ms. Powell?
Aye.
Ms. Barnes?
Aye.
And myself, aye. It carries 6-0 unanimously. Now, our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 emergency relief.
I'd ask Dr. Wilson and Ms. May to share plans outlining the use of the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds. You no doubt heard a lot about this in the media lately, but I wanted to walk you through those, and I'm going to share, got that up on the screen, so I'll turn that over to them.
We are currently using the ESSER 1 funds. That's what and we've just about spent all of that out, and that has been presented to you earlier in another meeting. Ms. May is getting ready to finalize the application for the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3. And you will see on this particular document a description of what ESSER stands for and what we have it to use, as well as the amount of funds that have been provided to us as of the last look into the documents that Ms. May has. And she is online. I was talking a little bit so she could get her mute button off.
Good evening, board members. So I'll pick up there, Dr. Wilson, if you would like for me to.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so this informational document that you have in your packet, as Dr. Wilson said, it gives you the draft planning allotment amounts for ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. So you can see we will be receiving approximately $16 million with ESSER 2 and about $37 million with ESSER 3. There is a stipulation with ESSER 3 that 20% of that $37 million must be set aside to mitigate learning loss. So you heard Dr. Wilson speak earlier this evening about our Summer Scholars Institute. The proposal is to pay for this year's Summer Scholars Institute out of ESSER 2. Overall, the cost of that, including staffing, the stipends, transportation, supplies, everything that it will cost us to run that summer program, that'll be about $1.5 million of that $16 million budget. We are also proposing to put in our ESSER 3 application to continue a summer program like we will offer this summer for the next 3 summers. Because as you can see on this document that you have in your packet, the ESSER 3 funding will run through September of 2024. So what I've listed on the document in your packet is just kind of I've given you a bulleted list of the things that we are planning to put into this application. And these plans were put together after several meetings with district staff and gathering input from all of our staff. We actually shared these tentative plans with our principals this morning and got feedback from them as well. And after sharing this information with you all tonight, we will also post a survey on our social media accounts so that we can gather feedback from community members before the final submission of our applications. So I'll just kind of run down this list. As the first thing on the list is the summer school. So as I said, we're including the cost of that for the next for summer of 21, summer of 22, 23, and 24. So for the next 4 summers. We're also including the cost of some compensatory education for our exceptional children. A lot of additional hardware, computer costs will be included in the budget in the applications for these funding. As you just heard, we are moving forward with phase 1 of the flat screen TV displays. Along with that TV display, we will be putting speakers and swivels in all of our classrooms with the use of this ESSER funding to make it easier for our teachers should they need to do synchronous teaching where they're teaching face-to-face students as well as students that are remote. We also will be contracting to strengthen our infrastructure for our wireless access points. We're including some classroom furniture in this application. As you all know, a lot of our classroom furniture is very old and the surfaces are porous surfaces, so we want to upgrade our classroom furniture so that it will be easier to sanitize and clean. In addition, we will be removing carpet from, I think it's 58 of our classrooms that still have carpet in them, and we'll be installing tile. That's one of the things through our work with the health department that has been a concern with virus transmission and just sanitizing and cleaning classrooms. So that's a big component of what we will do with ESSER 2 funding. With ESSER 3 funding, we will also be doing some HVAC upgrades. In addition, we have with our ESSER 1 funds, we have purchased software, both instructional software and software to digitize all of our processes so that we can continue business without having to have so much paper going back and forth. So we will continue those software costs as well. And we will also sustain positions that we have began with ESSER 1 funding and our GER money, which is the Governor's Education Relief Funding. So those positions that we will be sustaining through ESSER 3 are the Executive Director for Student Services, a Mental Health Coordinator, and a Lead SEL Psychologist. And then as we look at mitigating learning loss, we're also including some funding in our ESSER applications for classroom positions to reduce class size, as well as some intervention positions. You may remember with our first pot of ESSER money, each school was allowed to hire a part-time interventionist to do small group instruction. And so we will continue those intervention positions through the life of our ESSER funding, so through the 23-24 school year. So our application will include needs assessment, data analysis, and a little deeper explanation of this bulleted list that I've provided for you this evening. But we are asking for approval to go ahead and get those applications submitted within the next couple of weeks because we are in need of the ESSER 2 funding as we look toward beginning our Summer Scholars Institute in June. Are there any questions?
I have one question, and for the compensatory education, for the services for the special needs of our students to make sure that their IEPs are met up to date. Will that be just offered during the summer? Will that also go into the school year?
Yes, some of that may continue into the school year. We will begin that this summer, but depending on the child's specific needs, that could continue into the fall.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Ms. May. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we proceed with the elementary and secondary school emergency relief applications as outlined in this plan submitted by administration.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Boyette, second by Mr. Breen, that we approve the proceeding with the application process for the elementary and secondary education emergency relief as presented and recommended by administration. Did I cover it? Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, if you would please respond. Ms. Boyette.
Aye.
Mr. Boykin.
Aye.
Mr. Breen.
Aye.
Ms. Powell.
Aye.
Ms. Barnes.
Aye.
And myself, aye. So it's approved 6-0 unanimously that we can proceed. And it was a good presentation, Ms. May. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is the Rock Ridge Youth Athletic Association lease agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. For tonight, we're going to be presenting the Rock Ridge Youth Athletic Association lease agreement for the use of the athletic fields at Rock Ridge Elementary School. This lease agreement will be for 10 years. A previous lease agreement existed with the Wilson County Youth Athletic Association. That association is no longer in existence. The proposed lease agreement has been reviewed by our board attorney, and we have met the legal requirements for notice on this lease agreement. So we do present that for approval tonight.
And this is a second presentation of that. And I think the recommended editing improvements and so forth has been done from what I read. Any discussion, questions?
We just need to change the page numbers.
Do what?
We just need to change the page numbers. The page numbers on the bottom of the, well, mine came out wonky then, I guess.
You're right this time.
Well, mine says 3 of 2, 4 of 2, 5 of 2.
Let's see what.
9 of 2.
I got a
Mr.
corrected copy, and my second one
copier, the new
Yeah,
copier.
you didn't do any of the back pages,
Mhm.
you only got.
The setting on the new copier messed up on, so the package been fixed.
Well, then I move that we approve this lease agreement.
You're right now.
I second it.
I second.
Yes, ma'am.
Always the
Who
little
made,
things.
who made the motion? Do we approve it and second it? Now, we've had discussion. I did review, I did not. It was moved by Mr. Breen, seconded by Ms. Boyette, that we approve the Rock Ridge Youth Athletic Association lease agreement. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, please respond with your vote. Ms. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin? Aye. Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Ms. Powell?
Aye.
Ms. Barnes?
Aye.
And aye. It's 6-0, it's unanimous. The next is the Wilson County Schools Resource Officer Memorandum of Understanding. Mr. Mills, or Dr. Mills or Dr. Williams.
Dr. Williams has been working with the.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Also, tonight, we would like to present the proposed School Resource Officer Memorandum of Understanding for board approval. We have a current MOU, but it was time for an update to our MOU. This proposed SRO MOU has been reviewed by our board attorney, and it was written in collaboration with the Wilson County Sheriff's Office, and we present this MOU for board approval this evening.
I think this too has been discussed at an earlier meeting, last regular meeting, I believe. Any questions, comment, discussion?
If you'll stop on page 5 when you get there,
Yes,
under D, and it's the last statement, no time shall an SRO request that any Wilson County School employee lead or conduct a search of a student for law enforcement purposes. Suppose there is a female who's needs to be searched, and your SRO is a male officer. What do you do in those circumstances? Because in the past, you've been able to call another teacher maybe to at least watch or search.
If it is a law enforcement, Ms. Barnes, this is in regards to item D, searches.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So it is a law enforcement search because we do have two different types of searches that we conduct. We have legal and policy that we have a legal and a policy provided way by which we can conduct searches as administrators at the school level. If it is a law enforcement search, their process is to typically call a female officer.
Okay. Thank you.
But if it is a law enforcement officer search for a law enforcement function, what I'll do is I'll make sure to communicate with Captain Anderson to verify that. But if it's on the school side, we would certainly follow all the protocols with a female staff member as well. So.
Any further questions, comments?
I just have a comment that I just want to thank sometimes it goes without saying, but we do thank our resource officers for maintaining a safe environment for our students, our teachers, and our staff. Because without them there, I know things would not be as safe and orderly as they are. So I really want to thank our 13, I think, resource officers that we have in Wilson County for all that they do.
I think we have a good program in there, organized well, in my opinion, and manage themselves well.
Yes.
No further comments or questions. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the school resource officer MOU.
Second. Who?
Dueling seconds.
Ms. Boyette, I'm gonna put it on you, but that'll be fine. It's been moved by Mr. Boykin and properly seconded by Ms. Boyette and Mr. Breen that we approved the Wilson County Schools Resource Officer MOU as presented. Any further questions or comments, discussion? Hearing none, please vote when called. Ms. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin? Aye. Mr. Breen? Aye. Ms. Powell?
Aye.
Ms. Barnes?
Aye.
And myself, aye. It passes 6-0 unanimously. Now, the proposed items are declared surplus for auction. That's Dr. Mills or Dr. Williams.
Dr. Williams, do you want to answer any questions from the board? Tell me where we are.
Yes, sir. I'll go ahead and turn it over here to Mr. Letchworth. But what we do have are our proposed items that are to be declared for surplus for auction for board approval. This auction is scheduled to be held April the 24th, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Letchworth for additional comment.
These items are from maintenance, some from transportation, child nutrition, and CTE as well, which you have a listing of each breakdown of that.
Thank you. I have a question, and I think I know the answer. I remember in the past when there were surplus auctions, if a principal or a school or a director had a need for such an item, they had the option of acquiring it, but I would suppose it's surplus because you could find no one that needed or had a purpose for it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
Mr. Vice Chair, I know we advertise in the Wilson Times. I assume that they'll have links or whatever that, here's my concern. It's on April the 24th, and I see we do have quite a few items, including those 3 buses that I want people to make sure that they know what items we have. Could we have a link maybe on our website as well, so that we can put these things out, so that they'll have an opportunity to be aware of the very fast approaching date?
I saw a sign today at the warehouse diagonally across from the creamery that had the date and the surplus to sell it there. But I think it would be good to have a link because you could list, on the sign, you can't list all the items. You can put it here so people can determine if they have an interest or not.
We can do that, put it on our Facebook page and our social media page too, yeah.
Just ask a few people to put it on Facebook and everybody.
It'll go out. Yes, that was something you brought up, and they are on there.
Where will it be held? At the bus garage?
I understand it. I saw a sign today. I think it was going to be is it going to be at the warehouse or the bus garage?
The warehouse directly across from the creamery, and RED auction company is handling the auction. There is a long list on their website, actually pictured buses. I know there's been four different vendors around Wilson that's had flyers set up on their counter where any of the farmers would go and get parts from. So that part is covered, but we can also put a link on our website as well.
That additional information is helpful, thank you. That lets me know that people have had the opportunity to find out about it. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, discussion? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we approve the proposed items to be declared surplus for auction.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Powell, properly seconded by Ms. Boyette, that we approve the items that have been declared surplus for auction as presented. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Okay, please respond Would you vote? Ms. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Ms. Powell?
Aye.
Ms. Barnes?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so it's 6-0. It's a unanimous vote to approve the surplus sale. Our next item is the budget amendments.
Mr. Stanley's going to step in the board meeting here in just a second. Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay.
I just texted him. Thought I heard him.
Mr. Vice Chair, I need a break. Can we have just a 10-minute break?
Okay. I was planning on that when we got to closed session, but I assume now would be a good
That's
time.
fine.
It won't hurt. Let me go get my.
You know how long it's going to take.
Okay, if it's going, let's go ahead and take,
Do that. That'd be a good time.
take a 10-minute pause.
Yeah, we'll get their mic set up too.
Okay. Okay, we can resume after a well-deserved brief break. I think we were preparing for Mr. Stanley regarding the budget amendments. Mr. Stanley. Oh, here we go.
Hold on, it's slow on this one, here we go.
State Public School Fund. There was a minor adjustment done to some freshman teachers, which adjusted due to national faculty and teacher orientation. That took away $11,000. We had non-instructional support personnel. That was January and February subpay. And then the summer reading camps was an initial $150,000. That was the initial allotment at this time. Salaries and benefits was primarily what was the increase or decrease in all those line items. Any questions on state? Next is local current expense. On this one, we're just making some adjustments for technology transfers some money from 6,000 to 5,000 series, and then we were adjusting the supplements between 5,000 and 6,000. So there's no increase or decrease, just adjustments from 5,000 and 6,000 accounts. Next is federal. On federal, we did get some additional funds. We got IDEA State Improvement Grant of $20,079.66. We got some exceptional children grant funds from ESSER, which was a grant we applied for and received at $57,225. Gear funds, another grant we applied for and received at $288,615. Again, more gear funds for supplemental instructional services, a grant that was applied for and received $176,596. And then the IDA 6B handicapped, the initial allotment was less than the planning allotment at the beginning of the year, so we had to adjust that budget $353,209.99. Primarily what was adjusted, we also had to adjust a little bit in career and technical education between 5,000 and 6,000 and 8,000. Transfer for some supplies, and that came from 6,000 series and 8,000 for career and tech. Title I was adjustments made for adjustments made in line items by principals. The state grant, that 20,000 was it's been budgeted for staff development supplies. The CARES Act money, which is PRC 163. Again, we're adjusting between 5,000 and 6,000 there for outdoor wireless access points. And then most of those grants were budgeted for salaries and benefits in some positions.
Yes, ma'am.
Just one question. The IDEA, the one that was handicapped, the initial allotment was less than the planning allotment. Is it usually that much? The 353,000, I see, how it's broken down.
That's a question that's going to be, to answer your question, is it usually that much? Sometimes it goes in reverse, so I can't answer that question because I don't really know what it was last year at this time either. It was just, I don't know how they based their numbers on it, and when we actually got the money, it was actually less. Usually planning allotments sometimes are a little bit higher than the initial allotments.
Ms. McFadden's on the line. She might be able to answer that.
Ms. McFadden? That seemed like, I didn't know if that was a COVID related item, or it just seemed a little higher than I was used to seeing in when we were planning and having to adjust it that much.
Members of the board, I think that's just an adjustment between the planning allotment and what was actual.
We can go back and look, see what last year's change might have been, and see the differences. I'm not aware of it being a COVID-related piece.
I'm not either.
That's good, that's fine.
Yeah, if anything, they've been very generous, through COVID.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion?
You got one more. Got capital outlay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chair, I move that we approve the budget amendments for the 2021 State Public School Fund 107, Federal Fund 305, the Capital Outlay Fund, I think it's 406, and the current expense fund of 201 for the school year.
Second,
Who said?
Ms. Howell.
Okay, Ms. Powell. Thank you. It's been moved by Ms. Barnes and seconded by Ms. Powell that we approve the budget amendments for the current year. Budget Amendment 107, 201, 305, and 406 as recommended by administration. Any further comments, questions, or? Hearing none, please respond with your vote. Ms. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Ms. Powell?
Aye.
Ms. Barnes?
Aye.
And myself, aye. It carries 6-0, it's unanimous. Now, our next item is the local current expense and capital outlay budgets.
Board members, we had our budget work session and shared this information. The only change we made was Mr. Stanley received the information about the retirement rates and what we anticipate them being from what we had estimated. They increased from 22.8% to 24.37%, and hospitalization went up from what we were estimating 6,500 to 6,580. Is that correct, Mr. Stanley?
Yes.
Everything else is as is, but we did want to make that adjustment. Typically, once we receive those, at this point, they won't change for those two pieces.
Okay. Any comments, questions, discussion?
I was not able to attend the meeting where the work session. I did go back and look at it. And the one question I have, or clarification, it says page 9 at the bottom, but according to my accountant, it's page 10. It's under Human Resources, 352, Employee Educational Reimbursement. Ms. Barnes was mentioning, did we pay for national board certification, and in the discussion at the work session, and I was asking, I wanted some clarification on that. I see the current budget was $10,968, and that's the same as the proposed budget. So my question is, how much of that did we use this year? Does that, is that part of what could pay for national board certification or recertification? How much was used this year? Is that a good amount? Do we need to have more based on how many teachers we have? Because I do believe that that's an issue, that is something that we do want to do to continue to encourage by paying that amount. I looked it up, it was $495 for each of 4 tested areas, so a total of $1,900 that is required when a teacher applies.
Mr. Stanley, do you perchance know how much we spent this year out of that line, or Dr. Parker?
I don't know if we can get, if I can get to a link, I could tell you.
Not right offhand. We could just split up though.
Dr. Parker, can you clarify, like the ones that we've learned about tonight that were National Board certified, were they able to get funding, the renewal or the one that applied from those funds?
I'm not aware right now of those who have applied and or received funding. Most of the people who have are folks, beginning teachers who used it to be reimbursed after they've taken and passed the praxis, or courses that have moved them along in the beginning teacher process in order to obtain licensure.
With that in mind, I would like for us to consider reallocating or requesting a specific line item or an addition to this line item to allow for funding for National Board certification.
Okay.
I certainly think with how intense it is and how demanding it is, I think certainly, especially when they're successful at it, they need to be, of course, they're compensated and some for that, but some people might not be able to pursue it if we don't help them.
Correct, and I think that is, $1,900 is a whole lot on a teacher's
I
salary.
don't know about, $1,900 is a lot for me.
I brought it up as Mrs. Boyd said the last time, and I know in 2013, when I worked with National Board teachers, we only had 12, and some of them were going to Wake County. And for Dr. Mills to say we have 76 now, that is tremendous. And I would love to see us continue to support them so our numbers can increase, and we can also keep them here in Wilson County.
It'd be easy to add that in and track that and go back through, see what it's been over the last little bit, estimate what that could be. That's no problem. We can do that.
And even if we considered putting a certain amount in the fund, and then if it wasn't enough, we could look at, going back and adding to it. If it was too much, then we could roll it over or give stipends or something. I know Ms. Barnes spoke of, we used to have support groups, and someone that was certified would support teachers that were going through the process, perhaps a stipend to encourage someone to help with that. I just think there are things that we could do in that area to improve and attract teachers.
Any further discussion, comments, questions?
We can make that adjustment, no problem. But I do think it'd be good to have the data to go back and anticipate and show, so you could kind of see what trend is, and we put that in there and read off of it.
I mean, even having that information recruited can be a real plus.
We're a large number for a system our size, or for any size period. But that's definitely worth doing.
Okay. Any further questions, comments? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we approve the 2021-2022 local current expense and capital outlay budgets with the additional line items for human resource services.
Second. Ms. Powell.
Who's the second?
Ms. Powell.
I'm sorry. I'm doing the best I can. It's been moved and properly seconded that we approved the 2021-2022 local current expense and capital outlay budgets with the addition of the human resource item regarding National Board certification. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, please vote when called. Ms. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin? Aye. Mr. Breen?
Both of us, aye.
So you get to vote twice this time. No, it's my fault for the sloppy handwriting, okay. Ms. Powell?
Aye.
Ms. Barnes?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So it's 6-0, it's unanimous. Our next item is Superintendent of the Year nomination, and And I wanted to, my 2 cents worth is, we've had some outstanding progress made in Wilson County, and of course it got interrupted by the COVID situation. And we've grown in many ways administratively. And I think that we, and I've said it publicly, we have as good a superintendent as I think anybody does in the state. And the way to do that is to go through the Central Carolina RESA and thus consider a nomination. I'm certainly in favor of it. Any other comments by anybody?
Just to be clear, we're talking about Dr. Mills.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Brewer. That means everything to me, Mr. Brewer.
You're welcome, Dr. Pye.
Mr. Vice Chair, I just want to add my little 2 cents in on that too, because we really have grown a lot since Dr. Lane Mills has been with us, and I'm really impressed with what we're doing now and all the programs that we have that's coming up, and the capital outlay, and looking at our schools and really getting serious about what our students need. And this year has been a trying year because of the COVID-19. This has been trying for everyone. And Dr. Mills has stepped up and with his staff, senior staff, and they've batted a 100 as far as I'm concerned, what they've had to deal with. And anything you ask him to do, you know, he'll look into it, and if he can't figure it out, he'll find someone that can. And I noticed that he's always, I saw that, Mr. Brewer. And I noticed that, I forgot who it was, you know, an email that someone has asked you to come and speak at something coming up to tell about Wilson County Schools, Mr. Dr. Mills.
Yeah, I did the realty group.
Yeah, the realty group, yes, I saw that. I was really impressed with that. But people are noticing what's happening, and they want to find out what we're doing, and especially when it's dealing with our students. So I really think that whether he wants to or not, or agrees or not, I think that we should definitely put his name in for the nomination for the Superintendent of the Year.
Is that a motion?
Second.
Okay.
Well, it's been moved by Ms. Powell and seconded by Mr. Breen that we enter Dr. Lane Price's name in. Now, have you got that? Okay, Dr. Mills.
Say what?
Look, Brewer is going.
It's just like being at home.
No, seriously. It's been moved by Ms. Powell, proper second by Mr. Breen, that Dr. Lane Mills be entered, his name entered in nomination for Central Carolina RESA for the Superintendent of the Year. And any further discussion, questions, or name calling?
Well, I'll reserve my name calling until the end.
Don't you feel lucky now, don't you? Hearing none, please vote when you call. Ms. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Ms. Powell?
Aye.
Ms. Barnes?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so it's unanimous, 6-0, that Dr. Lane Mills will be nominated by Wilson County Schools for Superintendent of the Year. Now, that's all our action items. Ms. Barnes, do you have a motion?
I do. Board members, I move that the Wilson County Board of Education go into closed session to consider confidential personnel matters as provided in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1 and 6 and 115C-319 through 321 to consider confidential student matters as provided in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1 and North Carolina General Statutes 115C-402 and the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act 20 USC 1232G to establish or give instructions concerning the Board of Education's negotiating position concerning a potential acquisition and or lease of real property as provided in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A5, and to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3.
Second.
That's Ms. Boyd, yeah.
Yeah, that was
Okay. It's been moved and properly, moved by Ms. Barnes and properly seconded by Ms. Boyette, that the Wilkes County Board of Education go into closed session to consider the confidential personnel matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 6 and 115C-319 through 321 to consider confidential student matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and North Carolina General Statutes 115C-402 and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act 20 U.S.C. 1232G to establish or give instructions concerning the Board of Education's negotiating position concerning a potential acquisition and or lease of real property as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A5 and to consult with the Board of Education attorney to preserve the attorney-client privileges provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A3. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, please vote when called on. Ms. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Ms. Powell?
Aye.
Ms. Barnes?
Aye.
And I vote aye, 6-0. We're in closed session.